Transmitting to you from Old Heart Radio.
Oh yeah. Ooh. What? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. This is another episode of Coffee and Contemplation. I'm your motherfucking host, Old Heart. And I have been sitting down here with a cup of iced coffee, trying to wake up my brain, you know what I mean? Using my brain for good. Obviously, you should too. I did, however, pick up an article this morning that kind of caught my radar, caught my eye, and I don't think it necessarily is other people using their brains for good, but you didn't hear that. But all the same, it's still a very interesting subject. What I wanted to talk about real quick today, amongst a couple of things, I got two subjects I wanted to talk about. They're very not related to each other, but very fascinating, at least to me, which I always appreciate. Thank you. I love when things are fascinating to myself. I hope that you enjoy fascinating things as well. Not everybody has the same kind of fascinating things, but we all find things fascinating. I don't know what I'm saying, and that's all right. I'm just rambling at the moment, but I'm also talking about the discovery of the largest mass child sacrifice grave in history. That's right. It's a pretty grim subject, but not all subjects can be puppy dogs and pigtails, okay? Sometimes you have to talk about mass child sacrifices and the places that those sacrifices are buried. So either way, just diving into it, I found a BBC article titled "Mass Child Sacrifice Discovery May Be Largest in Peru." And it just kind of goes on to talk about how archaeologists in Peru have recently discovered a mass grave holding 227 bodies, aged between 5 and 14, all found near the coastal Peruvian town of Huanchaco. Don't quote me on that. God damn it, I need Lucas around here. This comes off the back of like a year ago. They found a 200 child victim human. God, that's so confusing. 200 children human sacrifices were found in two other sites in the country. A lot of this is obviously believed. Obviously, a lot of this is believed to stem from the people that lived in the region during roughly 1200 to 1400. They were the Shimu, whatever you want to call them. There was the people basically that were there ruling before the Incas took them over and conquered them, and after before the Spanish came over and took the Incas, conquered the Incas. It's not that funny. It's actually a really touchy subject. I don't necessarily appreciate the Alive Studio audience laughing at, conquering of native peoples. It's not that funny. Yo, if my friend Jesse was here, he'd sock that Alive Studio audience right in the face. Shout out to my friend Jesse, though, man. He's off in Vietnam right now. He's been posting these incredible photos of his trip on Instagram. It looks fucking amazing. It looks like a beautiful country. Either way, though, we're not talking about Vietnam. We're talking about a mass child grave found in Peru. I know that sounds like a really unpleasant subject, but it's history, people. It's history. So, that being said, it's something that, is kind of interesting.
Chimu.
So the Chimu people basically maybe not enjoyed, but they basically regularly sacrificed things to their god. Their god was more or less, or their gods, excuse me, plural. But the god that they worshipped most, more or less, was the moon, which that kind of sets them apart from some of the other indigenous tribes that stemmed from the area, because they found the moon god. They thought the moon was more powerful than the sun, which I agree. I think the moon is a vastly more powerful entity. I mean, the sun, that's obviously not true. I suppose if I were to look at it through like a mystical lens, like I would assume that the moon would be more powerful. If I, just trying to, place myself in an uneducated, completely different way. I guess they were educated people. Definitely were educated people. Just a completely different type of education. You know what I mean? Yeah, maybe not. Either way, so. The archaeologists of this discovery in Peru told the AFP news agency that some of the bodies in this latest collection still had hair and skin when they were dug up. So they were well preserved. Yeah. So they also say that the children in the graves show shoutouts to Evil L, shoutouts to Moon06, shoutouts to Castle Roll, shoutouts to Harrison Hannon, shoutouts to Uncaged, thanks for listening, shoutouts to Monkflower Band, shoutouts to Bugatron, shoutouts to anybody out there motherfucking listening. Y'all are great. Y'all are aces in my book. Shout out to Yellow Teeth, always. Either way, you guys are great. Thanks for listening. As always, give me some feedback if you have some. If not, you do you. You do you, honey boo boo. So, they discovered that most of these children seem to have been killed, or they at least show signs of being killed during wet weather, which I'm very curious as to how they discovered that. Were they all like wrinkly with the hair still wet? Like I have long ass hair and it's bulky as fuck, and if I put it up right after a shower, it stays wet all day. Maybe that's what they kind of meant. I don't know. And but more importantly, they were also buried facing the sea, meaning they were probably sacrificed to appease the Chimu's gods. So it sounds like they definitely are pointing the finger at the Chimu. They're saying, Chimu, not cool. So the Chimu people worshipped a moon god called Shi, S-H-I, which, unlike the Incas, according to this BBC article, they believed was more powerful than the sun. And the people that basically followed the religion, the devotees, they sacrificed regularly to offer in a way of offering spiritual offerings to said god or gods. Again, this is technically the largest, 227. The other one or two had 200 people, 200 bodies in it. So, I wonder how many more of these they're going to discover, honestly. That's the thing that trips me out, is that they've now found 3 graves, mass graves, holding hundreds of children or bodies. So I just kind of it, pretty much. It kind of just I wonder if they're gonna continue to be able to find stuff. Also, just a really quick side note, one of the things that this whole discovery brought up for me was the reflection on the Amazon rainforest that's being burned down, and a lot of other parts of the world that are caught up in the global catastrophes that result in the loss of culture. I just this, as awful as this is, it's a terrible thing that these people used to do, because obviously, those gods were angry either way. Even if they existed, they seemed like dickheads for wanting children to die. I'm just gonna say that. But it's an important cultural discovery. It's a piece of the human experience, the human story. Ugly as it is, and we have some very ugly moments. Arguably more ugly moments than beautiful moments. I'm gonna throw that out there. But so that's why it's worth acknowledging. I mean, it may sound very disturbing, but reality is, like, this is history. This is a piece of history, and I want to know if they discover more. I would find it fascinating if they were able to eventually discover maybe like a rough estimate as to like how often this happened, based on how many mass graves are discovered, or like bodies are discovered. Like how like, you know, like what was the actual religious practice. Like how many sacrifices was deemed to be required. I mean, it's one of those curiosities that I always have about religions, just in general, is that, like, why demand sacrifice of your followers, of your devotees? Like, why would you demand that you kill off your following? Doesn't make sense to me. Just doesn't. I would personally, if I was like to play God, I guess I would want to know. I would want to have, as many followers as possible, and I would want them not to die so they could worship me more. Interesting. Not that I'm getting any ideas, dear listeners, but you know, it's just like I said. It's weird, interesting history, and I'm not a religious person. I don't want to go down that road. But you know, I there's been many religions and many gods and many styles of worshiping throughout human history. Like, it seems like the human beings are always looking for something to fucking worship, and that's bullshit. For one, I think we don't need something to worship. You know, but we've always been conditioned to, it seems like. It feels a little less so in nowadays after having broken away from that kind of idea. But it's so prevalent. It's prevalent in the United States. It's prevalent in other parts of the world. It's just, you know, indoctrination nation, and it's just fucking crazy. But either way, if we're not, sacrificing children to weird sea god or moon gods or whichever gods, then, you know, we're sacrificing our dignity to the fucking green god. Either way, this has been another episode of Coffee and Contemplation. Like I said, I just found that fascinating BBC article, and I disturbing subject, but interesting all the same. I'm gonna post the link to it with the what is this, a podcast, and hopefully you'll find it as interesting as I did. If not, suck eggs. Either way, I do appreciate y'all listening. Y'all great. What do we say? Go out there, use your brain for good today. Every day's a good day to ripen up your coconut, kids. And as always, the most important thing that red, green, and yellow teeth taught me: keep your stick on the ice.